Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the North Lincolnshire series, a district of 56 parishes in the north of Lincolnshire. Let's see which one we're visiting today. You know, at the end of last week's North Killingholme episode, I said the rain seemed to be stopping. Yeah, I'm not going to ever say anything like that ever again, because it clearly isn't. If anything, it's getting a bit heavier. And that van that just came past me has just splashed me. I can't really get any wetter. Anyway, we're in the other of the Killingholme twins today. This is the much bigger South Killingholme. This North Lincolnshire episode is sponsored by Past Days, a family history blog by June Terrington. You'll find her link in the description. And this video is also sponsored by Jamie's Fitness Studio, based on Low Road, Graham, near Curtin in Lindsay. Jamie is one busy lady. Check her out by calling 07906 749 574 or emailing hello@jamies.co.uk. Online membership is available. There's a link to her Facebook page in the description. Jamie's Fitness Studio. Get fit, get happy, get healthy. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like, and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Welcome to the second of the Killingholmes. This is South Killingholme, which is much larger than its northern counterpart, and by some margin. That wasn't always the case, however. The parish was predominantly agricultural and sparsely populated less than 100 years ago. That all changed when the oil refineries to the north and east of the village were built in the 1960s. Unlike North Killingholme, which generally avoided mass expansion, South Killingholme became much larger almost overnight, providing homes for workers in the refineries. Most of the village was built in the early 1970s. Since then, development has slowed somewhat. Like its northern twin though, the parish is split roughly 50-50 between residential and industrial use. Industry here consists mainly of petroleum storage, oil refining and power generation. Part of Immingham Dock falls within its boundaries too. Some agricultural land does remain, albeit little. South Killingholme is split into two parts by a road, the A160, which, when built, cut off one side of the village from the other. These two parts are linked today by a brand new bridge. Now, because it was raining heavily, I've had to cut some bits of video here and there because they looked and sounded shocking. Nonetheless, I reckon what remains still looks pretty good. Time to stop jabbering and get walking. Here's South Killingholme. We begin our walk on Greengate Lane at a bus stop outside number 8. The service that stops here is the number 455, which runs from Barton to Cleethorpes. Greengate Lane is mostly residential, as is much of the village. Before the refineries came along, South Killingholme simply didn't exist as we know it today. The community centre was supposed to be next, but it was a casualty of the rain. Here, though, are the community greens, effectively the village playing fields. At the northeastern tip of the greens, there's a long, narrow, muddy footpath, which I don't recommend walking down. But guess what? I did anyway. At the end, you'll find this former landfill site on Eastfield Road. A couple of years ago, there were plans to build a wind turbine on this, but these were later withdrawn. And just like last week in North Killingholme, Eastfield Road is where you'll find the refineries, their massive towers looming large over the area. Now, as you'll recall from last week, there are two oil refineries here in the Killingholmes. Last week we saw the Lindsay oil refinery. This is a different one. So let's talk a bit about this. It's got a bit of a different history. This is the Humber Refinery, owned and operated by Phillips 66, a company which split from ConocoPhillips in 2012. This is much larger than its neighbour. The Humber Refinery processes approximately 221,000 barrels of oil a day. Despite that, it has the lowest emissions of any oil refinery in the UK. Construction of the refinery started in 1966. It was built for Continental Oil UK Limited, the company which would eventually become Conoco. It was originally estimated to cost £25 million, but it cost twice that. It should have been built by 1968, but it was delayed thanks to bad weather in the summer of that year. It eventually opened in July of 1969. Much of the crude oil it processed came from Libya and Dubai, as Continental Oil had large discoveries in both places. These days it's fed by an 18-mile long underground pipeline which runs from the East Lindsey village of Tetney. So just minding my own business, walking past the refinery, and all of a sudden I hear this alarm in the background which is still going off. Listen. It's quite loud, isn't it? I wonder what that's all about. I have no idea personally. Anyway, it's time to move away from the refineries now and head towards a major road. Running to the south of the Humber Refinery is the A160, a major road which passes through the parish to Immingham Dock from a junction with the A180. It runs for a length of 3.2 miles. It was built to provide easy access to Immingham Dock for freight traffic. Most of the vehicles you'll see on it usually are lorries. This isn't the original A160, however. The old A160 is what we now know as the B1211, which we met back in Ulsby. When this new road was built in the 1960s, it split South Killingholme in half. That means some of the village became isolated away from what would become the main settlement. We're about to go and see that area, passing Immingham Transport on the way, one of the region's largest transport, warehousing and distribution providers. Over the road we see a Jet petrol station, and that's no coincidence. Fun fact, Continental Oil owned Jet at the time of the Humber Refinery's construction. But we're out of the industrial area now, and to the left here we've got Mayflower Woods. Let's talk a bit about them. In 2005, ConocoPhillips established this woodland. Named Mayflower Wood, this is a 120-acre site that's planted with over 60,000 trees and shrubs. It seems there's been an initiative to encourage the birds here. I was loving the bird fueling station you see when you walk in. It's possible to walk into Immingham via these woods. There's a number of routes you can take. The land is owned by the company, but you're 100% entitled to walk through here. Leaving the woods behind, we're now on Baptist Chapel Lane, and here's the chapel. It was originally built in 1747 and then reconstructed in 1792. Here's Killingholme Animal Feeds. This is the go-to place for things like straw, oats, fat balls, peanuts, and even fish food. A large part of this southern portion of the village looks and feels like a scattered rural settlement, a different world compared to the area we've just walked through. At the end of the road is primitive Chapel Lane, which used to be called just Chapel Lane. The chapel served until the 1950s, after which it became a store. Now we're crossing the A160 again via this brand new bridge, added as part of a recent road improvement scheme to allow better access to South Killingholme village from all directions. Once over the road, we find ourselves in what was the traditional village centre. South Killingholme does well for itself for amenities. Here we have the village surgery, and diagonally across the road and over a small green, there's a Methodist chapel. I have no date for this, but it's very much still in active use. There's a few other bits and bobs as well, including this hair salon. One thing South Killingholme seems to lack, however, is a pub, although it used to have one called the Cross Keys. And now we're heading down School Road, which is where we find the village shop, which also doubles as the post office for both the Killingholme villages. There's also a parish notice board in this sort of village centre, so there's a card going on it. It's here outside the salon, which you've just seen. There we go. Oh, turn it right around, it might help. There we go. That's both the Killingholme twins done. Awesome. Right, down School Road. And this is our route back to the car now, down School Road, past the school, and then around a few more streets before we head back to Greengate Lane. Here's Killingholme Primary School, the only school in the Killingholme villages. In 1903, the two Killingholmes formed a united school district. At that time, the school was actually in North Killingholme, based in a building which was built in 1857. It was attended by about 120 children. The remainder of this route is residential. There are streets around here named Mayflower Close and Pilgrim's Close, and these are references to the Pilgrim Fathers. In 1608, the village briefly became a location in their story after their vessel was forced to put ashore due to bad weather, and they sailed up Killingholme Creek. This event will be touched upon more when we hit Immingham. We're now on Top Road. The Cross Keys pub I mentioned earlier was located on this road at number 6. Our last landmark is this playground, located halfway back down Greengate Lane. Now before we head to our next location, here's today's special section. Today it's all about Killingholme Marsh, a vast area along the Humber on which you'll find 3 lighthouses: Killingholme High, Killingholme South Low and Killingholme North Low. They were built in the 19th century to guide ships passing through the Humber estuary. Killingholme High is the oldest, having been built originally in 1831. Killingholme South Low followed in 1836 and North Low was constructed in 1851. The Killingholme High that stands today is not the original, as it was rebuilt in 1876. 2 of them are still functional. The North Low lighthouse has been inactive since 1920. Killingholme Marsh has a few other things of interest as well. It extends northwards into North Killingholme, and part of it was once used for clay extraction. All that remains of the clay pits now are large pools. You might remember these from last week, as I was stood close to them at North Killingholme Haven. Rather unsurprisingly, there was also a brickworks to go with these as well, which was located to the northwest of South Killingholme Haven. By 1930, a fish meal and oil works had been built between the lighthouses and the brickworks, with its own jetty onto the Humber. Both were connected to a railway which still crosses Killingholme Marsh to this day. If you know where to go, you can also find the site of a former railway station as well. You might remember we crossed a railway line with no barriers last week. The line we crossed is the Barton and Immingham Light Railway, which opened in 1910. It passes through the parish north of the village, parallel to the Humber Bank. The line's primary purpose was to enable workers to get to and from Immingham Dock. Killingholme railway station opened in the same year. The station had a single straight wooden platform bearing a small wooden station building with minimal facilities. The line also connected to the Humber Commercial Railway too. So I've just realised the Strava app has not been recording all of my route. Again, the rain has done that, just like it has done before. So the map you'll see at the end is going to be a hand-drawn version. Okay, there's one last thing to talk about, and that is this here, which looks like another refinery. However, it's not a refinery because they are over there, one of them anyway. That right there is another power station to go along with the one that you saw last week in North Killingholme. So let's talk about this to finish this episode off. This might look like another refinery, but in actual fact it's a power station. This is Immingham Power Station, a combined heat and power gas-fired power plant. The station sits right on the edge of Killingholme Marsh, and most of these shots are from Marsh Lane, the road you would use to get to the old railway station. The plant opened in 2004 with a generating capacity of 730 megawatts. This was expanded to 1180 megawatts in 2009. The station was developed by who else but ConocoPhillips. It's since been sold to a company called Vitol. It cost £350 million to build. Despite its main purpose being power generation, it also has another use. The plant supplies steam to both the Humber Refinery and the Lindsey Oil Refinery. In August 2020, plans were approved for an expansion to the site, which will increase Immingham's output to 1,240 megawatts. And there you have it, that's the other of the Killingholme twins, and that's both of them ticked off the list. There's only one more parish to go to now in North Lincolnshire, and that is the town of Bottisford, and that's coming your way next week. But for now, this has been the parish of South Killingholme. These have been the Killingholme twins. I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot, and I'm out.